This episode of Bullet Heaven was made possible with a copy of the game provided by Rocket Punch. Mecha-based run-and-gunners have been a fairly common sight on Bullet Heaven in the past. Gigantic Army in review number 95, Gunhound EX in number 99, Steel Strider in number 142, and Assault Suits Lanos in review number 158 all demonstrated how to make a decently paced run-and-gun with big robots. Our viewers have been telling us about another title in the same kind of style though, and now it's time to check it out. Hardcore Mecha is a story-based side-scrolling run-and-gun with light RPG elements developed and published by Chinese developer Rocket Punch on the PlayStation 4 and Steam. With its emphasis on storytelling and cinematic flair, it feels less like Lanos and more like Double Dragon with guns. Yet it still holds a great amount of shooting action. Let's take a closer look. As a side-scrolling action game at its core, the controls in Hardcore Mecha should be pretty straightforward, and for the most part, they are. But there are a lot of functions that players need to be aware of at all times, and they can be a little confusing and sometimes difficult to execute in stressful situations. Players move left or right with the left analog stick. Movement is steady, but a little on the slow side, which makes sense given that the player is piloting a multi-ton colossus with giant guns. Players can also aim their weapons up or down while moving, allowing them to shoot at varying angles to hit their targets easier. Players can also leave their mecha by pressing the touchpad at certain points in the game. When outside the mecha, players obviously have less HP and vastly weaker weaponry, but some phases of the game require the player to leave in order to interact with computer terminals or discover secret areas. Players can also hide in certain areas with the L2 trigger. All players need to do to get back into their mecha is jump into it with the X button. Pressing the X button will allow the player to jump. Holding the X button will also engage boosters to increase jump height, hover, and generally access areas that require more height. But these boosters are limited and will deplete as players use them, but recover once the players land. A gauge at the bottom of the screen displays the remaining boost power. If the player needs to dash out of harm's way, close the gap between their mech and an enemy, or generally move in any direction in a hurry, the R1 button allows players to boost swiftly in any direction. This can also be activated mid-air for fancy evasion tactics and getting to hard-to-reach areas. This will also affect the amount of power left in the boost gauge. Pressing the square button will fire the player's main weaponry. Players have the ability to equip multiple weapons through the game's customization system, but only the player's main weapon has unlimited ammo. A reload time spaces out the use of these weapons when the player's magazine is expended. Secondary weapons are often very powerful but have limited ammo and will be discarded when empty. Up to 3 weapons can be held at once and can be cycled through by pressing up on the D-pad. Players can also find and pick up various weapons from enemy units as well, which, like the player's secondary, will be discarded when its ammunition is expended. Once again, a number of these weapons are super powerful and can make quick work of the player's foes. The player will also have access to a sub-weapon that is fired with the L1 button. It also sports unlimited ammo with reload times and can help greatly in laying down additional fire, damaging enemies quicker, and filling gaps while the main weapon is being reloaded. The player will be able to fire their main weapons at any angle they can tilt the left analog stick, though most sub-weapons have a more limited range. Movement can still happen while aiming though, so if the player needs more steady aim, holding the R2 trigger will lock the player in place, allowing them to aim and fire freely. This can even be executed mid-air, allowing for players to aim while they hover, so long as their boosters hold out. For a more up-close and personal brand of destruction with a bit more punch, so to speak, melee weapons can be accessed by way of the triangle or square buttons. These attacks can be comboed with rapid button presses after impact, but a cooldown will be triggered when the combo ends or if the player misses. With 2 separate melee attacks, the player can switch between the two at will for more flexibility. Melee attacks can't be used when equipped with two-handed weapons. Players even have access to additional items to assist them in their missions. Repair packs, homing missiles, collapsible barriers, gun turrets, mines, and more can be picked up with the down button on the D-pad and stockpiled to be used anytime by way of the R3 button under the right analog stick. Players can select which to use by way of the left or right buttons on the D-pad, though this can be very tough to do in stressful situations. players can defend against bullets, heavy attacks, and more with a heavy shield, which is deployed using the L2 button. Learning when to defend and when to attack is critical in some situations. Of course, the shield can also take time to raise, making it trickier than just getting out of the way in a lot of cases. It can also be broken through, indicated by an orange gauge under the player, so of course, care should be taken. This shield also can't be used when equipped with a two-handed weapon. Finally, players have access to a super handy ultimate attack that can turn the tide of any battle. Superpowered lasers, gigantic energy swords, and even bullet time can be employed to get out of a pinch or destroy everything in the player's field of attack, depending on the ultimate move. It can be engaged by pressing both the triangle and circle buttons at once, but only when the blue gauge in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen is filled. So yes, the controls are very crowded for the kind of game that Hardcore Mecha is, but like anything else, these inputs can be acclimated to. By the end of the main campaign, players should be able to move swiftly and attack efficiently versus any opposition in the game. But there are issues. We really wish there was a way to simply reload the main weapon and sub-weapons. No inputs exist for this, meaning that some encounters might start off with only a couple of shots rather than a full magazine. We also find it just a little troublesome that picking up a weapon of the same type that's in use doesn't just give the player more ammunition. Rather, the new weapon replaces the old one and the old one is then dropped. This can get confusing in crowded situations, which can be far from ideal. Hardcore Mecha takes place over the course of 18 missions with a wide range of primary and secondary objectives in each. Players can also interact with certain NPCs to trigger secondary objectives to make extra cash, so long as the objective is completed. The action shifts into different styles as well, though primarily mech-to-mech combat will be the norm. The action is broken up nicely with an on-foot stealth stage, a cool shmup-style sequence, and then, holy shit! This right here, this amazing stage. As players make their way through and defeat more opposition, they will increase in level, which factors into development and customization. The higher the level to a maximum of 20, the better the gear for the player's mecha, which can be purchased with credits obtained through regular gameplay. As more development is completed, better technology will unlock and can be equipped onto the player's mecha to increase weapon power, armor, resistance to attack, increased boost duration, and more. Better main weapons, secondary weapons, and sub-weapons can also be developed, but the secondaries will require plans found throughout the game to actually make. Some of these plans are very well hidden too, which requires a sharp eye and encourages exploration. Hardcore Mecha will definitely be difficult on the outset as players come to grips with the controls, but with more experience and upgrades, the challenge levels out nicely. Of course, certain enemy attacks and various hazards can deal a lot of damage to the player's life gauge. Thankfully, in most stages, the player's life can be replenished, along with developed items and customized weapon loadouts, at various points by way of repair stations. These repair stations also serve as general checkpoints in case players are destroyed. The main campaign has long legs thanks to its large wealth of missions and development trees, but there's more. An endless simulation mode that allows players to take on a never-ending onslaught of opposition wave by wave is unlocked when the main scenario is completed. Players can also research and upgrade their mechas for the ultimate machine using points earned through gameplay. Hardcore Mecha also features a multiplayer mode for up to 4 players. Each entrant selects a mecha and pilot of their choice to square off in a special multiplayer arena. All kinds of mecha can be unlocked, many of which are only available via codes that can be found online, allowing for a great amount of choice. The main downside to this is that even with only 2 players, each only has a quarter of the screen to work with. Online play is another hefty component to the game, though without PlayStation Plus, we couldn't try it for ourselves. However, players can increase their rank through online play, allowing for more mecha, parts, and pilots to be unlocked as they do so. This allows players to customize and deploy better mecha to take on the world. The Steam version therefore holds the edge in this respect thanks to its free-to-play online mode. The bottom line to it all is that Hardcore Mecha is a very fun game. So fun, in fact, that when we lost 75% of our footage due to corrupted recordings, we didn't mind playing it all the way through again. It has some stumbling points, but on the whole, the experience was pretty great, and versus matches with 4 players are sure to be a really fun time. Even Dane liked the multiplayer. There is no actual scoring system in Hardcore Mecha. This is a game that's played in a mission-by-mission manner with nothing like a score getting in the way of the action. Basically, the story is front and center. However, players do receive funds to spend on development and weaponry through various means. Defeating enemies and breaking containers will spill credits of various sizes and values around the playfield for players to pick up. These can disappear over time though, so players should be quick to collect them before they vanish. Players also receive bonus funds for completing the main campaign's missions for the first time, but replays will give them nothing. Only collected credits in the stage itself is what players will receive. Thankfully, stage sub-objectives still reward the player with extra credits, though some are harder, or more time-consuming, than others. Performing well in any given mission will reward the player with a letter grade between D and S. As such, a grade of S on every stage is the ultimate goal, and better grades can easily be achieved on earlier stages with a stacked mecha. But that's all we can see for any semblance of a score. Otherwise, players can earn better ranks through versus gameplay, which can be a sizable portion of the game's staying power, depending on how important online gaming is to the player.
Hardcore
Mecha is fun to play, but the visuals and sound here are also some really top-tier stuff. On a very basic level, everything uses rotation and gliding with regards to movement, and this is often used as a very cheap production style in games made today. However, Hardcore Mecha does more with this, giving everything a really cool live 2D style that creates a very subtle but noticeable depth to everything here. It's very unlikely that anything at all in this game is 3D, but some elements definitely look that way, which is a testament to the 2D work here. All of the mecha and characters are presented in a chibi style, which makes for an ironic depiction of the stuff going down here, especially when watching enemy forces brutally execute people. It's a weird dichotomy, but it works to sell the overall true tone of the game. There are times that things get super detailed though, especially at pivotal moments in the plot or when giant high-energy attacks are being executed. The character design is also really top-notch stuff. You'd never know at a glance that this game wasn't made in Japan. On the sound front, Hardcore Mecha's music and sound are excellent. Weapons, explosions, impacts, boosters, everything really, work just as players should expect. Everything sounds like it should, with great impact and a satisfying tone. The game's music is also completely on point with a feel that matches every bit of the action on screen. The main theme in particular is everything someone would want in a mecha anime series, sung by Hironobu Kageyama, you know, from Jam Project. The plot in Hardcore Mecha isn't especially groundbreaking, but it works, and there are quite a few decent moments throughout the game that are sure to wow players. Rounding out the presentation, Hardcore Mecha features slick, easy-to-navigate menus, a great interface, and of course, trophy and achievement support. But how does it all stack up? Let's take a look. The controls in Hardcore Mecha are obtuse and can lead to confusion, but with time, the player's mecha will become a natural extension of their controllers. A lack of a reload function hurts though. Challenge-wise, on the outset, some encounters will be pretty difficult, but when the maximum level and development is attained, Hardcore Mecha is a cakewalk. There's a huge amount of game to play here, and multiplayer is a blast. The PlayStation 4 version of the game suffers with its online mode walled behind PlayStation Plus though. With this in mind, the Steam version gets full marks. The awesome, super detailed live 2D style visuals look pretty dope. Likewise, the music is great and the sound effects are fantastic. Even the VO is great, with Chinese and Japanese voices available. The intro theme by Kageyama is a perfect touch. Hardcore Mecha isn't the most ingenious game on the block, but it doesn't really need to be either. It takes a while to get used to, but it's still super fun. For only about $20 in US dollary dues, Hardcore Mecha delivers a great amount of game. With its immediately available online features though, the Steam version is a better value. This was a really fun one, despite the wonky control setup and lack of some functions. So fun in fact that I bought the disc-based version just because of this review. How often does that happen? All in all, if mecha are something you dig, or if you need a slight change of pace from all those traditional scrolling shmups, look no further than Hardcore Mecha. If online is important to you but you don't have PlayStation Plus, be sure to check out the Steam version instead. Hardcore Mecha gets a 4 out of 5. You can get Hardcore Mecha on the PlayStation Network or on Steam for about $20 US. We're getting back to traditional shmups with another game we've had a lot of requests for, Sisters Royale on Nintendo Switch. Is it deja vu? We'll find out in review number 259.
Be sure to like, comment, and of course, subscribe. We finally got a copy of Hyperduel for the Sega Saturn and we'll be reviewing it once we hit 10,000 subscribers.